Hey everyone, welcome back to episode number 2. Thank you again if you're joining here for the first time or if you've been here for a while. Welcome back. And I'm so excited for today because today I'm going to talk about a little bit of my life story, not entirely, not my whole testimony, just a conversation I'm having with the Lord right now because actually when this podcast comes out, my birthday would have already passed, but right now that I'm recording it, my birthday's coming up, and it's just brought different conversations with the Lord that I've been talking to the Lord, and I just felt like sharing this with you for the sake of encouraging you in your walk with the Lord. And so I'm excited for today. Welcome again. Grab yourself your cup of coffee, your favorite drink, your tea, whatever you like, and we're going to get started. Okay, so as I shared, my birthday, right now that I'm recording it, my birthday is coming up next week. And I'm turning 29. I know that that's not old at all, but obviously as you get older, even when I was like turning 16, 17, I was like, oh my gosh, every time the Lord blesses you with another year and you grow another year older, it's always like, oh. And so, but as I'm about to turn 29. Obviously, I have been meditating, reflecting, talking to God about my 20s because I'm obviously I need one more year, but almost finishing the second decade of my life, almost up to 3 decades. And so I have just been talking to the Lord about that because just reflecting on my 20s, and this is where I wanted to share a little bit of my story. I'm realizing I'm having the same conversations with God right now as I was when I was about to turn 20. So when I was 19, about to turn 20, I was loving Jesus wholeheartedly. I had rededicated my life to Jesus probably when I was like 14 years old. And I grew up in the church. My parents loved the Lord. But really where I fully understood the gospel, what Jesus did on the cross, the whole narrative of the gospel, it made sense to me when I was 14. I got baptized. So I was loving Jesus wholeheartedly, trying to pursue him in my weakness, but with everything that I had. And I was 19. My birthday was that year I was about to turn 20. So this was 2014. And I don't even remember what I did for my birthday. I mean, I'm sure I celebrated with my family. My family did something for me. But all I remember what I did that day was that I wanted to go to the prayer room. So I was a part of a local church, and our local church had a prayer room. And it was a Saturday, so there wasn't many people there. It was actually kind of empty, and it was just a live stream from a prayer room that's 24/7. Actually, it's the prayer room I'm in right now with my husband. But I remember I just wanted to go to the prayer room that day as like kind of like a prophetic declaration to the Lord. Like, Lord, I'm going to give you my 20s. And obviously in me, I was like, this is my last year as a teen, 19 as a teenager. I'm stepping into my 20s. It was a really big deal for me. And I think it is for a lot of people where it's like, I just graduated high school. I'm going into school. Like all of that season can be very overwhelming sometimes because, your 20s you're stepping into adulthood a lot more. As a 20-year-old, it's what people call the wet cement years, where it's wet cement. So you're still forming, trying to build a good foundation, trying to figure out different areas of your life for them to be stable and for you to continue to build your life on. So like you're thinking about what school to go to, you're thinking about your career, you're thinking about a job, you're thinking about your finances now. Things that you didn't have to worry about before, now you're having to try to face decisions. But as a 20-year-old, you're still really immature, you lack experience, you don't have all the money in the world, you're barely trying to get a job, you're barely trying to figure out all these things. And so I just felt all of that. And so, but as a 20-year-old, what do you have? I was single. I had time. As a 20-year-old, I was like at probably not the most like the most point, but I have strength as a 20-year-old. Like I have strength in my body, and I still do right now. But what I'm saying is as a 20-year-old, there's strength in my body, the strength of my youth. Like I have all of these things that I know as I get older, I'm going to be a little bit more limited in. And so that day when I was turning 20, I went to the prayer room, and I just, in my weakness, in my simple desire to the Lord, but it was really weak, I just remember telling the Lord, I want to give you the best years of my life. I want to give you the strength of my youth. I want to give you, when other 20-year-olds are trying to, dedicate their lives for their careers, or dedicate their lives for this, or look for other things, try to gain experience, just have fun and just go crazy and wild. Like, I want to give that to you. And it was hard I had that desire in my heart. And by the grace of God, I think I've given my everything, and there's still so much more to give, so much more that I can give to the Lord. But I realized that sometimes when I said that, in my weakness, in that small desire that I have to give my everything to the Lord, I didn't realize that my life obviously would look different. So I would have different experiences as a 20-year-old. I mean, I was a 20-year-old in all of my 20s. Most of my 20s, more than half of my 20s, I lived in LA, in California. And LA is one of those cities that you can always find something new. There's a new coffee shop, there's a new restaurant, there's a new place, there's a new park, there's a new theme park. I had all of these things, and I got to experience some of that, made fun memories there. That's where my husband and I dated, because we met in California, and we got to see and experience all of that. But when I look back at my life, whoa, I didn't do a lot of things that a regular 20-year-old would have done, especially in a city that big, that distracting, because most of the time I was giving it to the Lord. I was in prayer, I was discipling, I was leading prayer meetings, I was doing different things. And looking back, and like looking at my process and my journey with the Lord, there were times where I did have conversations with God where I was like, is this really worth it? Like, I feel like I'm missing out. I have the fear of missing out. I have FOMO right now because I'm not doing what other people are doing. There was at some points where I even felt, I don't even know at what age I'm going to get married. I don't even know if I'm going to have a family. Like all of these things, if you're a 20-year-old or younger, I understand you because we've all gone through that. And I was just going through all these things. And so it wasn't perfect. There were times where I struggled with God, and I was like, is this really worth it? But now as I'm closing my 20s, almost about to enter, obviously I need another year, but almost about to enter another decade of my life, I look back and I'm like, it was worth it. It was really worth it, not because of the experience, not because of how much money I made, not because of the people that I met, even though I got to meet my husband, I made a lot of friendships, not because of anything else, but because of Jesus. And that's a history nobody can have but me. Your walk with the Lord, nobody else has. Your history with Jesus, nobody else has that. Nobody else probably knows the sacrifices or the things that you've had to let go of, things that you have to say no to for the sake of giving it to Jesus. But the Lord knows that. He sees that story and he knows your history. And a story that has always impacted and moved my heart, where I am just like, I want to live that way, is John 12. When we hear the story of Mary of Bethany, when Jesus is at a Passover dinner, reclining at a table with all of these people around him, there comes a woman named Mary. I'll read it here. Verse 3, it says, Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment and made pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus, wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the fragrance of her perfume. So Mary has this expensive ointment, and it's the best of the best. You know, it was expensive. Obviously, at that time, it must have been something that she really treasured. She really was even being able to save for special occasions, little bits, not the whole thing. Maybe even saying, I'm going to save this, or I'm going to exchange it for money. I have something of use for this. But what did she do? She laid it at the feet of Jesus. The best of her best was at the feet of Jesus. And to those around her, it was a waste. This is what it says in verse 4. But Judas, one of the disciples, said, why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii? He's like, we could have made money from this and given to the poor. He was masking his greed with, I'm a generous person. I'm going to give it to the poor. And Jesus said, leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me. And so Jesus was saying, leave her alone. That this actually wasn't a waste. She's actually preparing my body, because this was probably a couple of nights right before Jesus was about to be taken to the cross. 2 nights before he was about to be taken to the cross. And so he's like, actually, it's not a waste, because it's preparing my body for my burial. And when he meant you have the poor with you always, he was saying, it's not that he didn't care for the poor. He was saying, she knows the value that I'm about to leave. I'm about to die. You're not going to have me anymore. Maybe everybody else has taken my presence for granted, that I'm going to be here forever. They haven't understood every time I've told them I'm going to die. They're like, you're going to die? What does that mean? I thought you were going to be here forever. I thought you were going to be our Messiah. And Jesus was saying, I'm leaving. And she actually blessed me with what she gave me, because I'm not going to be here physically with you anymore until I come back. And so her giving her best of the best seemed like a waste to everybody else. Maybe she wrestled within her heart. Should I do this? Should I not? Should I do this? Should I not? But she gave it at the feet of Jesus. And a lot of people might think your life is wasted. Your 20s are wasted because you're giving it to the Lord. But I'm here to tell you, it's not a waste. Jesus does not consider that a waste. Actually, it blesses his heart and it moves his heart, because you are blessing him as you pour out the best of your best at his feet. And isn't he worthy of that? And I think that we are going to live in a generation, and we are living in a generation where there are people in their teenager years, in their 20s, that are saying, I want to give the best of my best, my strength, the strength of my youth. Right now, as a single person, I have time. I'm going to give my time to the Lord. I'm going to give my gifts, my talents to the Lord. I'm going to give my yes, even if it means just showing up. I don't know what I'm doing, but yes, sign me up. I want to learn how to disciple. I want to learn how to teach. Those things move the heart of Jesus. Or even if it's just, I want to spend hours at the feet of Jesus. I want to go deep into the word. I want to study the book of Daniel. I want to go into studying about Jesus's life. I want to study the Gospels once again. I want to give the best of my best to the Lord in an intentional way. Obviously, I had already given my life to Jesus. I had already said, be the Lord and the Savior of my life. But I wasn't satisfied with the status quo or just what's necessary to pass by, just going to my weekly youth service and my weekly friendship group. I wanted more of Jesus. And so That's why I was like, I'm going to give more so that I can have more of Jesus, because that's how it works. You need to empty yourself out to receive more. And so I lived through that. And now that I'm about to close, about to close my 20s and almost start my 30s, I'm saying, Lord, I want to give you my 30s. It didn't stop with just my 20s. And now I want to speak to the older generation. If you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, a lot of times we can feel, well, I'm not young anymore. I'm limited. And yes, I think now we're limited in different ways. For example, for me, now I'm married. I have a home to tend to. We want to start a family. So I have now different responsibilities that I didn't have as a 20-year-old. But just because you're limited or you have responsibilities doesn't mean you can't give your oil and your perfume to Jesus. You can give the best of your best. Maybe it's before, when I was 20, I could give 10 hours of my day to the Lord. Now maybe I can give 9 hours, or 8 hours or 7 hours, depending on the day, depending on what I have to do. But that doesn't excuse me for giving my best of my best. And sometimes the best things that we can give God it's our time, it's our talents, it's our simple, weak yes. And so I want to enter into this new year of my life still with the resounding but weak prayer and desire of my heart of, Lord, you can have the best of me. You can have my 30s. You can have my 40s. You can have my 50s. And so I want to tell the Lord, you can have every decade, every year, every day, every month, every week, every second of my life. And sometimes I'm not perfect at it. Sometimes I have these conversations or these wrestles. Is it really worth it? Is it really worth missing out on these things in my life for the sake of giving it at your feet? And there's always this phrase that comes out in the prayer room. And I think Mike Bickle has said this phrase before, where he says, you're never going to regret the time you spent with the Lord when you see him face to face. The day that we see Jesus face to face, I think there won't be an inch, a slightest movement of doubt in our hearts, or where we can say, Lord, everything really was worth it. Every minute, everything. And he actually says, that's the better feeling, instead of feeling I should have given more. And so I want to encourage you and challenge you today, whatever age, season of life that you're in, give the best of your best to the Lord. Give the strength of your youth. Give him your song. Give him your strength even as you're getting older. Give him your time. Give him your attention. Give him your mind. Give him your heart. Give him your affection. And it's not going to be something that you regret the day when you stand before Jesus face to face. And so I just want to encourage you with that today. I hope this blesses you and this impulses you to go into your room, close the door, and cry out to Jesus, seek his face, go deep into the word, and to not despise giving him your everything. Don't despise walking a life of obedience to Jesus, whatever he asks you to do. I pray that you can have the grace to faithfully say yes and respond.